Hi everyone, how's everyone doing here today? Just want to say thank you for watching. It's getting a little chilly out, which I'll admit makes it a little bit more challenging. I like it better when it's warm out, but what can you do? So, today I wanted to talk about anti-racism, and this was in part to a little skit that Trevor Noah had did, showing the similarities between Fox and some of its low-life members and Nicholas Fuentes, a well-known white supremacist who recently had a meeting with the former president, also Kanye West, who was also recently noted not too long ago for making a lot of anti-Semitic remarks, because, hey, fellow racists, they all like to hang out together. Do I think Nicholas Fuentes is really significant? No, I don't. But he still has a lot of following, and truth be told, putting him aside, there's still a considerable amount of racism in our country, and especially in our politics, as well as the media. Now, obviously racism is always going to be there, but I think the best way to combat it is to talk about it, more importantly, call it out. So, looking at some of the similarities that Trevor had pointed out, is some of the things that Nick says are pretty much echoed on Fox. Mostly with the likes of low-life racist himself, Tucker Carlson, and some of the other sycophants, like Jesse Walters and some of the guests that they have, like Matt Schlapp, who is pretty much, by all definition, a far-right Trump bootlicker. No big surprise there. You'll notice it's primarily from the right, and guess what? It can be on the left, too. I'm not going to say it's strictly, exclusive to one party, but let's talk about some of the things that he said. Fuentes is also a Holocaust denier, no big surprise there, which I've mentioned in the past. He denies diversity is our strength. Okay. He couldn't be more wrong. That's what makes America strong, is its diversity. Is the fact that it's inclusive, and that when the Constitution says we the people, it means the people, all the people, not we the white people. So, I really don't know what he's talking about there. Now, obviously, a racist is going to say otherwise, but simple truth is, we have our freedoms, and our freedoms are spread out across the board. At least they should be, and that, people in color are just as entitled to the same rights as people like myself, or any other white person, I should say. Our country is godless, and he hates it. Well, that's not true, because as I mentioned in the previous video, we also have freedom of religion. Now, there are some religions out there that are like the infamous white Christian nationalism, which is nothing like Christianity, and that to me is about as godless as can be. In this country, you're free to worship whomever you want. We're the Catholic organization, and there's a lot of people that I know there that are pretty strong in their faith. Not just Catholics or Christians, but Jews, Islam, Judaism, and all sorts of other religions. So, no, we're not a godless country, I see churches and other places of worship all the time. My simple advice to Nick is, I have no clue what you're talking about, and quite frankly, if you hate the country that much, well, you're free to leave at any time. You won't be missed. At least not by the vast majority, that is. Black people are violent, and they should send in the military to deal with them to restore order. So he's suggesting, and that's something certain members on Fox have pointed out. I think Tucker Carlson was one. So they see all black people as being violent, and therefore we need to declare martial law only in the areas populated predominantly by African Americans. Okay. Violent behavior is not restricted to one particular race, and I know a lot about black people. Some I work with, some that I'm friends with. We have police officers, firemen, lawyers, doctors that are black, and guess what? They're not violent. So again, what the hell is he talking about, okay? In a scenario like this, and I know you're going to assume one thing, is that I would like to take Nick Fuentes and put him in a room full of black people and have him pour out some of this spiel. Note, when I say that, I'm not encouraging violence or anything like that. I'm not saying a bunch of big black guys that should tune him up. That's not going to solve the problem. If anything, that would it might be gratifying for the initial moment, but in the end, he would just go on Fox and claim, see, look what they did to me. They're violent. That would just reinforce his ignorance as well as his hatred. No, when I say black people, I mean, just like I said before, lawyers, doctors, politicians, activists, students who go to well-reputable schools and universities, black people who are intelligent, who are well-educated, and are good moral citizens. Because in a case like that, sure, they would combat Fuentes, but they would do it with ideas, with words. Not with this, not with force. And I guarantee they would shut him down in a matter of minutes. In fact, he'd get so fired up to the point, I think he would just storm out. Because he wouldn't be able to handle the truth that not all black people are violent, and that, yeah, there are some neighborhoods that are infested with crime that might be predominantly black. They could also be predominantly Latino. They could also be predominantly white. The problem is not based upon race. The problem is based on is how do you solve the community? How do you stop the crime? That's the questions you should be asking, and not making ignorant blanket assumptions that this one particular race are totally violent, because that couldn't be any further from the truth. Oh, downplaying Jim Crow, because according to Tucker Carlson, that was 67 years ago, and we should learn to move on. Well, Tucker, that is so easily said for a, racist, hateful, bigoted, sexist, misogynistic white person like yourself, who's enjoyed a healthy salary and feels very comfortable on his platform of Fox, when behind it all, you're an absolute coward, okay? To put it in perspective, I'm sure the family named Tucker, I'm not sure what country that originates from. Mine is European, and they immigrated to America because the last name Carlson does not sound Native American. Anyhow, when my ancestors came here, they came here on their own free will. They did it by choice. They weren't taken here by force. They weren't put in chains. They weren't enslaved. They were allowed to vote. They were never property. And when they had offspring, they weren't taken by their masters, who also sexually exploited some of their property. Okay? I don't think that's happened to members of Carlson's family in his ancestry, if he was to look back and see how his relatives and ancestors came to America. So, your family was not burdened during the Jim Crow era. So, no, it's not something you should just forget. It's a part of history, just the way you deny critical race theory shouldn't be taught in schools, which it isn't. But we should teach it. We should teach about racism. Why? To teach people how to avoid it. You don't sugarcoat history. You just don't erase it. You don't just deny slaverism or brush it off like, hey, it happened years ago. It's no big deal. We should forget about it and move on. Yeah, move on with our lives, but not forget, because it is a teaching life lesson, not just for white people, but for all walks of life in America. And they know this. They all know this. You can't tell me that. So. And Fuentes likes to root for Russia, especially when he's at his white supremacist gatherings. Yeah, it's easy to voice stuff like that. I've heard other people, like on TikTok, express the same sentiment, like, hey, Vladimir Putin's great, this and that, he should do something, unless it's President Trump at the helm, which he isn't the president, and yeah, he's a racist. I would love to, sit Fuentes in a room full of Ukrainians, who have been affected by the recent war, or some of the people in Russia who are opposed to Vladimir Putin, and have them intellectually explain, something Fuentes knows little about, little possesses, have them explain to him some of the realities of what living in Russia is like, and what, Vladimir Putin is like. I'm sure they would give him a sense of reality, which he desperately needs. Basic belief of men and women marrying immediately and having kids, That was also something echoed by Jesse Walters on Fox. This was shortly after the midterms, when the infamous red wave didn't happen, and Jesse's ridiculous theory, not even based in science obviously, feels that single women are opposed to the GOP, and they need to marry right away so they can make that initial switch to Republican. Yeah, because that's one of the symptoms of marriage. You somehow, immediately transform into a Republican, and, you want to vote for authoritarian figures and stuff like that, and strip away rights. No. Marriage is a choice, and if people decide to have children, that too is their choice. And not every couple that gets married has children, so I think that's kind of based on a foundation on the fact that they feel white people are being discriminated against, that what's going on in America is somehow bullying white people. Yeah, I've been bullied in my young years, and guess what? It was by white people, not people of color. And I guess the whole idea is saying is that white people is some kind of endangered species. Well, I haven't traveled the world, but I've been around to different states in the U.S. and to different countries, and guess what I saw a whole lot of? You guessed it. White people. I'm sure there'll be plenty around when I grow old and pass away, and as future generations come, there'll still be white people. There'll still be people of color. There'll still be, African Americans, Asians, Middle Easterns, and other walks of life. But don't worry, white people. I can assure you, everyone in the white supremacist groups, you guys are good. You're not going to wake up one day and find yourselves surrounded entirely by people of color in your community and realize suddenly you're the minority, that you're some kind of endangered species, okay? Again, it's just a lot of race-baiting nonsense that doesn't make any sense. And like some of the other things, is not grounded in any type of scientific study or reality. Oh, and this is my favorite one, where he gets really fired up. He says he feels he lives in a big Middle Eastern bazaar, whatever that means, where you have people sitting on blankets and selling cockroaches on sticks. He got really fired up about that one. The blankets and everything, I believe he's referring to how Middle Easterns in mosques worship, which I see them do. Well, that goes back to my freedom of religion. If you read the Quran and pray to Allah, as long as you're not breaking any laws or hurting anyone, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, freedom of religion. No, we don't need your white Christian nationalism, even though technically you're free to worship that as well. Not that I even consider that a religion, because those people, as I said, are godless. I've never been to a mosque, but something tells me if I went there, I wouldn't see cockroaches on sticks being sold. And as much as I try and be open-minded about different foods and stuff, maybe I'll get a little off topic, but I took a trip to Paris and ate escargot. Yes, snails. And you know what? I thought it was actually pretty tasty. So, if I ever find myself in a mosque here in America or in a Middle Eastern country during travels, and they have cockroaches on stick, assuming I even believe that, which I'm not so sure, would I be tempted to try one? Maybe. I'm not going to write it off. Maybe I'll be a little reluctant, or maybe I might look and say, no thanks. There are other countries, none that I know of off the top of my head, that do eat insects regularly. It's considered a delicacy, as well as routinely as, say, the way people here in America eat beef, chicken, and fish. But here's the kicker, Nick, and something you probably never even thought of, is that if you find yourself in the presence of one of these cockroach for sale stands, you don't have to eat a cockroach if you don't want to. I'm sure they have alternative foods for you to try, foods that you would be comfortable with. So, yes, if I was in Paris and I saw escargots and didn't really want it, they could serve me something else. They also have, beef, chicken, and fish as well, as long as with other exotic meats. But hey, like I said, if you're somebody that likes to eat cockroaches, you're free to choose. More power to you. And I know I'm being a little comical about this because, it all is pretty nonsensical. But the point I'm trying to make is that because racism has become so fluent in our politics, especially on the right, the important thing to do is to call it out. I would say to some of these speakers like Tim Pool and independent media, and Fox, stop giving Nick Fuentes oxygen. Let him go spiel his hatred on his platform with his followers then. Keep it limited. And when you see it happening on any side of the political spectrum, you call it out. When Trump had his meeting with Fuentes and Kanye, the Republican members of the GOP, like Kevin McCarthy, even though he's a swine, he did say he was opposed to white supremacy, but he wouldn't specifically call out Trump because he's a coward, because he's a bootlicker, and therein lies the problem. I've made this point before in a previous video where I've said to the GOP they need to grow a pair and stand up to the racism, especially when it's also spewed out of other lowlifes on Fox, like people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert, and anyone else who has anything racist to say. You call them out. If you expel Madison Cawthorn, you should expel out other racists in your party, assuming you're this party who's so opposed to white supremacy. We have to call it out. The media does, and not give it oxygen. Say to them, say no, we don't approve of talk like that. I know that can be a difficult thing to do, like when you're in the company of people at political events and stuff like that. But when you see racist things happening, you call it out for what it is. You call the individuals out for who they are, that they are racist. Let them deny it and try and make excuses. We got all the receipts. We got all the statements from people like Trump, from people like Greene and Boebert, who have nothing intelligent to say and just want to sow hate and create more division. You fight racism with unity. You fight it with the truth. And that not all black people are bad, and white people are not endangered species, and that we are a country of diversity. That is our strength. I don't care what lowlifes like Alex Jones or Steve Bannon or any of these other right-wing medias have to say. I'm more interested in the truth. We are Americans. That is our diversity. And we don't want racism in it. The vast majority of the country does not want racism in America. We are anti-racist. Anyway, I really hope you understand, and thank you for watching.